Hey guys, consider this your one-stop shop for all things rent relief in 2024. Buckle up guys, because things are changing very fast in the rental market. Landlords are offering emergency rent cuts as new units flood the market. And the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, is exploring a groundbreaking renters cash assistance initiative. So the idea is relatively simple. What if instead of a traditional housing vouchers laden with convoluted red tape that landlords notoriously hate, low-income tenants could pay their rent with cash? That's the revolutionary idea that HUD is pondering. And it's no surprise considering a recent Harvard study revealed that half of all renters are struggling under the weight of rent and utilities, often exceeding 30% of their income. Now, this reminds me of what billionaire Seth Klarman said, CEO of Baupost Group. He warned about this, the credit bubble fueling an everything bubble across stocks, crypto, real estate, and more. He worries that the easy money era of low interest rates led to inflated prices, and now the delayed impact of rising interest rates, it's going to hit the market really hard, probably affecting renters as well. But hey, like I said, we're all about rent relief today, so let's focus on that first. Hit the subscribe button already and just stay right there because we're diving right in. Here's a first look at the wave of rent cuts happening.
People here in Chicago are looking out. Our city is actually one of only a handful that's seeing rent prices go down. John Lickey is a data journalist with Rent.com. He's here to tell us exactly why. Good morning, John. Always good to see you.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so is Chicago really seeing a decline in rent prices compared to other cities?
Yeah, Chicago's actually down almost 2% year over year. And I think the bigger story in Chicago is that in the longer term, rents are not as elevated as they are elsewhere in the country. If you go back to before the pandemic, rents in Chicago are up about 1.5%. That's compared to 20% nationally. And even if you look at sort of the 2-year change from 2021, prices in Chicago are actually down about 2.5%. That's compared to about an 8% increase nationally.
Chicago is one of the first cities where landlords are having to make big rent cuts. I guess that's why they're saying that the year of the renter is off to a strong start. That is, unless you're a landlord. Now, I'm fairly familiar with both sides. I know a lot of people who are renters, while I also have a lot of friends of mine who are landlords. Yeah, it just sucks being a renter, but at the same time, I know landlords who have had to evict their most recent tenants because they were getting scammed out of their rent. Not to mention, the tenants also left a ton of damage that the landlords had to deal with. I mean, yeah, being a landlord looks great on paper, but based on the stories that I've heard, it's not as glamorous in the real estate world. My friends had to sell the property after dealing with some scumbags. At the same time, I'm not saying that all renters are scumbags. I was a renter myself at one time. I guess most people are just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place these days, you know? At least renters have a little something to be happy about. After months of relentless increases, rent prices in the United States are finally showing signs of stabilization, a potential sign that they may be on their way down. So according to this new report online from platform Zumper, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the United States held steady at $1,496 in January compared to $1,495 in December. Two-bedroom apartments also saw minimal change, with the median rent remaining at $1,847. And yes, I know these figures may not necessarily represent the most significant decrease in rent prices, but hey, I still see them as a welcome departure from the upward trend that dominated the rental market in 2022. And like I said, guys, this could be the tipping point, the start of rents going down, especially as the rent report attributes this stabilization to a surge in new apartment construction across the country. After years of lagging supply, developers are finally catching up with the high demand for rental units. This increased supply is leading to more competition among landlords, which is translating into some good news for renters. More supply, lower prices, it's basic econ 101. And hey guys, quick mention, just in case you haven't, I highly recommend hitting the like button and subscribing for more updates on the rental market, financial tips, and everything in between. We're just one big financial freedom fam here on the channel, so yeah, let's keep it going with this one right here. Some takeaways from the Zumper report. So number one, rent growth has slowed. Median year-over-year growth rates for one-bedroom apartments were only 0.3% in January compared to double-digit increases in previous months. Two-bedroom apartments saw slightly higher growth at 1.4%, but this is still significantly lower than earlier peaks. That means, number two, more bargaining power for renters. With more rental options available and less upward pressure on prices, renters are now in a better position to negotiate lower rents or secure additional concessions from landlords. Some renters are even reporting perks like waived security deposits and free rent. Last but not least, number three, this downward trend on rental prices is expected to continue as interest rates decline. Some potential home buyers may return to the rental market, and that'll probably further increase competition among landlords landlords and potentially put downward pressure on rents. Definitely looking forward to seeing where this goes, right guys? Now, of course, while it's too early to say definitively that rent prices are falling, the Zumpa report does provide some encouraging signs for renters in the US. The increasing supply of rental units and more competitive market landscape, they're creating opportunities for renters to find better deals and enjoy more flexibility. Of course, this comes with a major disclaimer. We all know how the rental market can vary significantly depending on location. While some areas may see rent decreases, other areas may still experience modest increases. But overall, I think it's pretty safe to say that we've seen a general trend of stabilization, and needless to say, it's a positive development for renters nationwide. I mean, sure, we feel bad for the mom and pop landlords, but at the same time, no one was talking about how disastrous things would be when rents went up 50%. Now, I understand why people may not have the most sympathy for the landlords having to drop rent prices back down to levels that real people can live with, and I'm all for capitalism and a free market and all, but I'm definitely not rooting for landlords and companies who price gouge themselves out of customers. You know what I mean? Renting is a reality for over 35% of American households, according to recent data. And as we all know, things haven't been easy lately. Renting costs have been skyrocketing, especially since the pandemic began. A 2023 Harvard University report paints a stark picture. A record 22.4 million renter households struggled to afford their rent in 2022. Talking about affordability, half of all renters in 2022 were moderately burdened, meaning that they've had to spend 30% of their income on rent, and that's not even including utilities. I've heard about too many people opting to live in tents. No taxes, rent, mortgages, or insurance. The number of people who tell me that they live in their car, it amazes me. It's crazy out there. But what do you guys think? That's why I have high hopes for this new federal experiment in giving renters cash, coming from a group of researchers at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I mean, I don't think it's exaggerating to say that this could fundamentally upend the nearly 50-year-old housing voucher program, which helps more than 2 million low-income families afford apartments in the private rental market every year. The current system of housing vouchers, also known as Section 8, faces criticism for its complexity and limitations. Limited availability, complicated regulations, and difficulties finding willing landlords may leave many low-income tenants struggling to access stable housing. Currently, only 25% of eligible individuals receive housing vouchers, and even then, using them can be difficult. It's all the red tape, the program's bureaucratic hurdles that discourage a lot of landlords and leave only about 60% of voucher holders able to find housing. A proposed alternative gaining some traction is direct cash rental assistance. This simpler approach replaces vouchers with direct financial aid to tenants, potentially streamlining the process and offering them greater flexibility in their housing choices. This could include access to better neighborhoods or units previously unavailable due to voucher restrictions. And this isn't the first time direct cash assistance has been considered. They even ran a successful pilot program back in the 1970s. Plus, all the recent experiments like guaranteed income pilots, they have definitely reignited interest in just plain giving cash to people, you know what I'm saying? I mean, in theory, it makes sense. This approach could offer several advantages. Simplified process, eliminating vouchers could streamline the process, reducing administrative burden for both tenants and landlords. Increased access, direct cash assistance could reach more eligible individuals, potentially expanding housing options. Wider choices. Tenants might have greater flexibility to choose housing in different neighborhoods. Potential cost savings. Reduced administrative costs could lead to overall program savings. To put it simply, this initiative could potentially create a more efficient and accessible system for both tenants and landlords. Whether it becomes a reality remains to be seen, but it represents a potentially significant shift in how low-income housing assistance is delivered. Though the idea is nice, current existing laws prohibit HUD from distributing federal housing dollars as cash. There's a potential workaround though, partnering with foundations. While HUD wouldn't be directly involved in handing out the cash, partnering with philanthropic organizations could enable them to conduct a controlled study and analyze the program's effectiveness. This approach essentially creates a real-world experiment. Philadelphia already has a very similar program underway, studying 300 households receiving monthly cash assistance via debit cards. HUD envisions a larger scale version with a potential launch within the next 6 to 9 months, right after they secure the right partnership with philanthropic groups. Tech companies and progressive groups with interests in universal basic income, UBI, could be potential partners for this initiative, as it could provide valuable data for their research. Now, this may seem small. I mean, yeah, we're still in initial discussions, right? But really, the significance of this is pretty darn great. I mean, we're talking about a potentially significant shift in how billions of dollars are used to aid low-income income renters. While Congress presents a current obstacle, partnering with private funders could open a door to explore simpler, more flexible systems of housing assistance. You can bet we'll be watching to see if this experiment becomes a reality. So make sure you guys always tune in for the latest updates, all right? I'll see you on the next one.